So yeah, this thing it looks so good that for a long time I was lulled into thinking it was good.
And yes,
It's gorgeous. It's just one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen in black and white. And that does kind of make you think it's better than it is. But I mean, underneath that, the visuals, it's like this Tinker Toy soap opera. There's no character development. It's very simplistic. I mean, okay, so the scene you're calling a rape, which is the scene where
it
the
is a
bombs are
rape.
falling
God damn
over.
it. Like it's not, I'm not calling it a rape. It's a rape. That's the whole point. That's why she's so
She
fucking,
marries him.
yeah, she
Yeah.
marries him because she's
Ruined.
been ruined
Mhm.
by him. And
Mm,
let me tell you, that's really uncomfortable for the whole movie.
Mhm.
right.
Is that the next scene after that where they're sitting at the fucking dinner table and everyone's fucking pissed at her,
Mhm.
and she's just like you, how do you not look in her eyes and see that she is dead at
Right.
that point in time? Like she has died inside. And it's so gross and uncomfortable. And like Scott was just saying, oh, it's a tasteful
It's off screen.
50s, it's a tasteful 50s off-screen thing. And it's like, no, actually, it's worse that way. It's worse because it's not visceral. Like it you have to imagine it. It all happens in your head,
Oh, yeah.
and whatever happens in your head is grosser than what they would have put on screen.
Well, I've always said that
Like,
about about code films. That there's a lot
yeah,
of awful stuff that happens in code films, and this is one of them. And
right.
it's like this one's actually probably the Russian censors or something like that. This is how you do that. And of course, the fall
Funny,
afterwards.
whether it's code or it's Russian censors or it's just restraint. It always, I mean, horror. Look at horror movies. It's always scarier until you see the monster, right?
Yeah, right.
You
Well,
know.
this was made with the full approval of the Russian government from beginning to end.
Mhm.
It's got some issues to it. I think it's
Well, this is extremely post-Stalin.
yeah,
This
it is.
is like this is the first time that you
But
are actually allowed to turn a spotlight onto what's happening, like what Russia was like.
Mhm.
Like
I mean,
there's that
some criticism.
hmm?
Yeah.
What's that, Jim?
They do get away with some criticism.
Yeah,
Right.
I guess you can tell it from what time it's from because it's not. I expected a propaganda movie, and it's not a propaganda movie at
Well,
all.
I think half of this film is kind of a imitation film noir or American drama or Western
Imitation of
drama.
an
Yeah,
American
yeah. And
movie.
so, at this time in
Russian.
57, I mean, there were plenty of Americans complaining about what happened to them in the Second World War. And they made movies about the war, and it's like they can kind of showing how unfair it was. It wasn't patriotic all the way. That was earlier or later, how you want
Mhm.
to do it. So this is kind of follows that half the film follows that trend. It's
It's
like
like best years of our lives kind
yeah,
of
they're trying to
drama.
compete in the global market
Yeah.
with this movie. So they want something that's going to be that people, that's going to have some controversy, but also toe the line.
Well,
And there's a lot of line towing in this movie.
no, the
Uh,
point where the father is like, or I think it's the father is like, oh,
yeah.
they're gonna build a statue that goes up to the heavens that has the names of all of our dead in gold on it,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
it's like, no, actually, they're not. They're not gonna do that at all. They're
Mhm.
gonna pretend that 11 million men didn't give their lives for this. Like it's like, and that doesn't include any of the people who died of starvation. Like they just threw people into that meat grinder over and over and
Well, wait,
over
yeah. Well,
again.
okay. Again, in the context of the film, though, we're getting away with a little more than they used to, and like
A lot
a
more.
lot more. Well, the old days, like Stalin as a statue, and everyone's like bowing to him. You see people going off the horizon,
Right.
But this is more even. You have mass crowd scenes in this film, and the ending of this film is
But
very socialist. It's like, well, the other thing you brought up earlier is talking about the rape. Is that surprisingly enough, Russia was trying to be kind of an egalitarian society.
Yes.
The patriarchal thing was just all over this movie. I mean,
Yeah.
there's like the man's role and the
Again,
woman's role. Yeah.
this movie is extraordinarily critical of the
Mhm.
system.
Right.
Like it's something that you don't get. I think this, I mean, 1957 when this movie is made, you certainly do not get that in America. You do not get a movie that is this critical of America.
Well, you don't get it. You don't get it flat out. You get it hidden. This is like,
No, but I'm saying like this
Yeah.
movie is directly critical of the Russian system. It
Mhm.
is critical of the Soviet system. Like, oh, you have all of these ideals and you have all of these ideas about how society should work and like how we should be and all this other stuff. And what the fuck is the truth of it?
Yeah.
And this movie is like what the truth of it is.
Well, mind you, also Boris kind of died unheroically. Just, bang and is
Well, going back to Paths of Glory, Boris
pretty much, yeah.
was the
Same year.
Boris dies in a
Because he pisses
ridiculously
off.
stupid manner
Yeah.
because his commanders were dumb
Yeah.
and sent him and the asshole out together, and the asshole fucks up, and it's like, well, I have to carry you,
Mhm.
and that gives the sniper enough time to get a bead on him and just put one through his back.
Right.
You know?
Well,
That was actually I mean, there's very little time spent actually at the front. There's
Yeah.
a lot of war in this war movie.
yeah, exactly.
But actually, to me, that was one of the more interesting like relationships was those two guys. Like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll sort this out later. We've been given this assignment. We got to go do this together. It did remind me of that scene near the beginning of Paths of Glory, Jim.
Well, what's the last thing he says? He's like, we're gonna dance together at your wedding.
Mhm.
It's like, you'll be fine. And then he gets shot in the back. And the last thing that he sees as he dies is the wedding that he's not gonna have with Veronica.
I know.
Right.
That scene is incredible when the trees start
Oh, the
spinning.
spinning
out.
thing, and they did the camera sideways and he goes in. There was the motion of the thing. And let me back up a bit. The Russians were doing stuff with wide angle nobody else was doing.
Well, and they
A
were
lot-
doing stuff with handheld cameras
Yeah,
that nobody
handheld,
was
exactly.
doing. It's because this guy was actually a filmographer in the war.
He was a combat photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah, combat
And
photographer.
and so he got used to using a handheld camera.
Yeah.
But I want to know, how did they do that scene with Boris on the stairs?
I
Oh.
don't know. They probably could have been a pull apart set because there's some artifice in this thing.
But like
It's continuous though.
he's going up and it's going the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, did they have like a crane
They probably,
that was, like,
had,
coming through
again,
the
there's some
roof?
stuff in a soundstage. There's a crane and a rotating set, maybe. There's a lot of ways of doing it. Or it can handheld, maybe you're like holding on a rope. We don't know. It's like it could be that whatever the guy, the DP has got an incredibly steady hand.
It's
It's
so spectacular.
crazy.
It's so spectacular. They used it again when he dies, and
Right.
they cross-cut they dissolve between the spinning trees that he's looking up at, and then he's on the staircase, and it's just so overwrought. It's so overdone. I was laughing. I mean, it's spectacular, visually
Oh,
spectacular.
don't forget the lighting in that thing. That was amazing.
Oh, this thing's
Lighting in the whole
impeccable.
movie is amazing.
Well,
Like,
just that one
this
scene
is-
was just the
this scene
the
is
flashing of the
dark.
bombs and things
But-
like
but
that.
see, that
It's
sequence.
dark,
But
and
let me
she's
finish.
wearing
That
a
sequence
black
gets
coat.
that sequence
Like-
ends when he gets to the top of the stairs and the doors burst open, and his bride to be comes out marrying the other guy.
I know.
And, like, that's his death scene.
I know. It's
It's
pretty
fucking amazing.
It's
But,
his
but
cousin too.
Yeah, his
again-
cousin, right?
Again, it's dark in this room, and you can see all of her in this coat.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, the lighting in this movie is spectacular.
Oh yeah.
The lighting and the compositions, where you really sort of see that Russian constructivist thing still influencing like the
Mhm.
compositions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking this is like the anti-Ozu, right? Because Ozu's all right angles and flat planes. This is depth and diagonals. It's
And
like
the crowd scenes at the end too are amazing.
Yeah.
Also when she misses Boris going off to war.
Oh,
The-
when she's like
Oh.
hanging onto the fence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the middle
Like-
part of the film, and that part is like it's the handheld camera about a foot from her head the entire
Yes.
time.
there's
Rock-
about 3 different scenes
Yeah.
of her pushing through a crowd in the movie.
rock freaking
Yeah.
steady too. There's no handheld anything there. It feels like it was done with a steady cam 30 years before it was invented.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well,
so
Semyolova is so beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
she is just
She's luminous.
so- like, the camera just loves her.
she doesn't have a single bad angle, that kid.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I
Yeah. Although, like I said, it was kind of a tough role. I think she has to go through a lot of different changes now, and she does it pretty well, I think.
I think especially when they go to Siberia,
Mhm.
and she's just like broken.
Right.
Like she's trying to figure out what the world is at that point, and she has this hope that Boris is going to come back to her through that whole time, and it's just like, he's dead.
The
Like, I'm
film
sorry.
Well,
Like,
you know, it's
the
it's
film kind of pushes you in the direction of thinking he might show up, though, because not only does
because she
say-
Well, yeah,
believes it
she
so
believes
much.
so much that he's not dead.
yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's a weepy, it's a melodrama. You know, this is the
It
thing
is.
that the Russian babushkas are going to go to the theater and bring a whole box of handkerchiefs with them. They can, like, wipe, cry through the entire
it's a
thing.
soap opera. I mean, emotionally, storyline. This is not very sophisticated. I don't think.
But this is like, this links up with Douglas Sirk in a lot of ways. A subversive
It's the
melodrama.
same kind of feel. to
Yeah,
it.
exactly. It's like it's a melodrama, so people are gonna come in and gonna want, kind of this sad story, but they're shoving some stuff in the background that is pretty raw.
Dude,
Questioning the war, questioning the decisions
Scott,
made during the war.
what are you comparing it to? The Cirque?
Douglas Sirk.
Oh,
Douglas
Douglas
Sirk.
Sirk. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what he was doing here against the code, the filmmaker is doing against the Russian censorship, or whatever it's called, the People's National Board of Making Movies, or whatever it was called.
This is also the first movie I have ever seen that has a big long list of all of the awards that it won.
Oh,
at
yeah.
the front.
Right. Yeah.
Like the actual propaganda in this movie is Soviets make good films.
Yeah,
Look at
I
all
know,
of these
that's what-
people who say that Soviets make good
Good
films.
for the international
Like,
audience. This is what a lot of this film is that.
first Vancouver International Film Festival.
That was kinda
This is like
just-
the 50s version of a prestige film.
yeah. David O. Selznick Award for Best Foreign Film.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Exactly.
it's
So, okay, do you want to do Jim's corner, or do you want to hear what Chris has to say?
Let's hear what Chris has to say.
Okay, here we go. He says the cranes are flying. All right.
he says the cranes are
Melodrama!
flying. Wow.
Exclamation point. Melodrama. Always a big hill for me to climb, and this movie definitely has some seriously syrupy moments. Y'all can throw tomatoes at me all you want, but I thought Tatiana Samalovia looked luminous, and the camera loved her. Huh, I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to catching the lens flare off her pupils. They put that nylon over the lens, I think.
Like a star filter.
Yeah, exactly. The lens flare of the pupils, but she certainly couldn't carry really heavy moments in this movie. Oh, she has this constant.
Disagree?
She has this constant weird facial tick where it looks like she's going to suppressing a grin, and it took me out of it. So he has a little
Literally look behind Jim and look behind me. She does not look like she's suppressing a grin in either of those.
Oh,
Like,
I'm just
she looks broken.
okay. Well, call Chris and yell at him.
Yeah, I'm arguing
Okay.
with Chris.
She
I'm
is.
allowed to do that.
I don't.
That's what we do
I
here.
have my pink drink right now. I'd be like coming right back at you, man. But I
Please
I have my
submit.
pink drink.
oh, that's nice.
Please submit. I drank my pink drink. Please
Oh.
submit your yelling and writing.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah. However, okay, the end. However, none of that matters because this movie is extraordinarily good looking.
Yeah.
Lighting, framing, production value are first rate, and the scope of the filmmaking was so good. I'm giving this a big thumbs up. So there it is.
I can't say enough good things about her. Like I think in the long run this is like a semi thumbs down for me, but like I couldn't look away from her at any point during this movie. Like she carried me through the entire runtime, the story, everything, because she was just so compelling. I think she's a very good actress. And like I'm kind of bummed that she just kind of gave up in the 70s. She was just like, well, I guess I'm done.
Well,
I can live in a decent apartment in Moscow and kind of be left alone. And it's like, it is like one of the tragedies of the Soviet system is that it did kind of chew these people up, and it chewed her up, and
You
she
probably
came
couldn't
back
be-
in the
you think
She
about it,
came back-
how big a star could you be in the Soviet system in terms of
well, and that's the thing is like somebody I can't remember who it was, but somebody sent her a message that was like, you're gonna be driving a convertible in Hollywood in 10 years. And she actually had Hollywood studios reaching out to her, and she couldn't leave because she was a student. And
Oh,
because she
man.
was a student, the system was allowed to say, no, you can't go. Like,
Oh,
you
man.
can't get a visa to go to the US. Like,
that
you're
blows.
stuck here.
I was gonna say, it's like it seems like the logical next step for her would have been to go to Europe and start making movies there.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably pick up some English really quick and go over there and be a splash.
Totally.
But that's how it is.
Apparently she did speak English too. Like,
Uh.
it was one of those things where, like, she just, like, the door got closed in her face and she just sort of went.
Well, they probably dragged her out in the promotional tour. She was in Vancouver. She was at that Selznick thing. She was all
Yeah.
over the place, probably.
You know
But,
for a
yeah, she
fact, Scott?
What'd you say?
You know for a fact that she went on a tour.
No,
for the
I'm guessing they want to make their best face. This is an international push, this film, and and she's
Yeah, it won
the face of this film. So
it's the only Soviet or Russian film to ever win the Palme d'Or. Like, it literally, like, this movie was so widely appreciated, and she would have had a career outside of Mosfilm, but they were just like, no.
had she been alive.
That's too bad.
That is too bad.
So-
Jim's Corner.
Warner, take it away.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I compared it to Cirque sort of positively. And the Russians are really into the sort of weepy melodrama things. So, even going back to like Dostoevsky.
There is that one close up of her where there's the tear,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
it's heartbreaking. Like,
Mhm.
her face carries so much. So again, why I disagree with Chris, like, her face carries so much emotion in that scene. Like, it's just like, yeah, you're losing everything right now, aren't you?
Yeah. Well,
I also like how long it takes for her to find the note that Boris left her.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We all
Well-
this one's
well,
we
the-
all
the-
saw it. And it was like
It's
The
a
this.
grandmother
note.
says there's a note here, and then they, like, are looking and they can't figure out that he buried it under all
Under
of the
the
stuff.
candies.
His little
Or,
nuts
Yeah.
in his little basket. Yeah. That was cute. I mean, it was
Yeah.
cute. It was actually tragic when it came out, but the thing is, I like the film because it was a combination of like Italian neorealism a lot of ways because of the intensity of going through the crowds and like that. Soviet, basically, socialist realist stuff was kind of like still in here, and also melodrama. It's like a weird melange of all of them coming together in this film. So a nice exposure to this era, I think.
Yeah.
All right, good
It
enough.
carried me through, kind of the way the performance carried Tad all the way through, just looking at this thing.
I know, just get
Or, Boris and Mark are also both pretty fucking good looking.
Mark is
too.
pretty handsome. Yeah.
Yeah. How about that
Mark
scene?
is quite handsome, actually.
Yeah.
Which makes him an even bigger asshole.
Right, which
More
makes
of
him
a
worse.
cad.
Yeah.
How about that scene where she finds out that her whole family's been killed and she runs up the stairs to the apartment? She
Oh
opens the
my
door,
God.
And she's
And
outdoors.
it's great because the door opens and it's like, oh, there's no.
Well, and the guy runs
no-
up and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Right. It's
And
obviously
then
not
he
safe.
realizes what happened, and he's just like, "Carry on."
Yeah,
right.
Like, he's
Okay.
literally just like,
The walls are gone. The ceiling's gone. She's looking out at the city.
There's
And
the-
the
and
clock.
there's
which
the
somehow
clock.
didn't even tip over, even though the entire bottom of it is
But
missing.
the
Yeah.
bot-
So okay, then I guess we can do thumbs at this point.
I would say this. It's like there's more to life, as Zoolander would say, more to life than being really, 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 really good looking.
Yeah, cheekbones for miles, that kid.
No kidding, man.